When people write a check and bet on me and my company, it is so moving because they are taking a bet on me. They're helping me up into the next role. So the way I pay it forward is to do that for others. And especially when things aren't going well for somebody, when they're down or, they've had a setback, that I always want to be there to help people. I try to never turn somebody down. If somebody asks for, for help or support in some way, for introductions, for mentoring, I try to be there for people. And to me, this is how we all can pay it forward. You don't have to pay it back. You just have to pay it forward.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Inner Wealth, the Forbes Ignite podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Cacal, CEO of Forbes Ignite. And every week I'll be sharing with you my conversations with unique, creative, and innovative people across all different industries. These are people who are intellectually curious explorers who are also redefining what it means to be successful today. From personal to professional, we cover it all to understand what drives our guests to blaze their own trails and create nimble solutions within the industries that touch each of our lives. Our guest today is Christine Heckart, co-founder and CEO of XAPA World, a positivity platform that empowers people and teams to unleash their full potential and flourish. Christine has such an incredible journey and brings over 25 years of experience in technology, holding various roles like CEO, GM, President, and CMO. We talk about forging new markets and categories, creating solutions geared toward positivity, the need for more companies using business as a force for good in the world, and so much more. I know you're gonna love what she has to say. Here's our chat. Hi, Christine. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, Nicole. It is great to be here with you.
I know we had a couple of really great conversations, and let me just say, you not only wear a lot of different hats, you wear a lot of very big hats. So I'd love to know, what have you been up to lately?
Oh, wow. Well, my whole life, more than 30 years, I guess, in professional terms, more than 50 years in life terms, has been spent working in tech. I was a little farm girl and I started working at my parents' gas station, pumping gas when I was 12 years old. And I pretty much worked full time ever since. And then last year, was it last year? A year ago, I was CEO of a company, a data analytics company, and we had a really great exit for all of our employees. And I thought, woohoo, I'm going to take a year off and I'm going to travel and I'm going to paint and I'm going to write and I'm going to organize the house and do all these great things. But then two things happened. One, COVID was still going on. And so the whole travel thing was still hard. We took the combined companies public in the summer and I kind of rolled out about that time. So summer of 2021, still a lot of COVID. So travel, not great. And I had this idea for a new company and I was going to not start it for a year, but I made the mistake of telling some people what the idea was. And they got so excited about the idea. They kind of bullied me to start. Now they're my co-founders. So, the bullying was obviously well-intended, but I completely lost the over-under. My husband bet my neighbor that I wouldn't make it until September. And this was like in May. And I was like, oh, that is so baloney. I'll make it until at least December before I go to work. And sure enough, we filed the articles of incorporation in July. And so my neighbor lost the bet, and I have not lived that one down yet.
No, that is wonderful. And I'm really glad that you took that plunge because there's so many people that could benefit from the amazing work that you're doing. And I know we're going to get into that a little bit later in the conversation. So I'd love to know, you touched upon it a little bit, but tell us your story. What was your personal and professional journey to where you are today?
Well, like I said, I was this little farm girl and I went to the University of Colorado Boulder and I got an economics degree. And I don't know what the hell you do with an economics degree. Didn't prepare me. It was interesting. It didn't prepare me for anything. I had a job offer in New York City. I had a job offer right in Boulder, Colorado. And then I had a boyfriend, my high school sweetheart that I was engaged to, who at the time was living in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because that's where his job had taken him. And I took the boy and I moved to Tulsa. And like I said, I don't know what you do in Tulsa with an economics degree, but it was before the internet and you walked around with your piece of paper and tried to get somebody to hire you. And I was very, very discouraged for about 4 months. And I finally was so annoyingly persistent at this little company called WillTel, which was an up and coming data and telecom company right after deregulation, the AT&T deregulation. It was owned by the Williams companies, which was one of the best employers in Tulsa. And, I kind of tricked them into hiring me. I wasn't qualified for the job, but they hired me. And I ended up with an amazing boss named Joselle who trained me and taught me what I needed to know. And they didn't know what to do with me, but they didn't have very many people and they were growing like a bad weed. And so they're like, well, we don't have anybody to do new product development. Let's put her on it and see if she can do something with it. And so I ended up being kind of the specialist at rolling out brand new products. And honestly, one, it was fascinating and I learned so much about business and about the technology, but also it created what became really the red thread through my career, which is always being on the bleeding edge of new innovations and creating brand new markets and brand new categories and being very disruptive. And there's an art to that. There's a bit of a playbook. And so I've been very lucky because every time I've made a move, that is typically the commonality. I've seen the tech industry from every possible angle, hardware and software and services and SaaS and storage and networking and security and entertainment and, more. But that's always the commonality with each of the things that I've done.
Wow. What a journey. And there had to have been a lot of people that either inspired you or became some of your role models.
I get that question so often, and it's so freaking hard to answer, in part because, I don't want to name off 50,000 names that you have no clue who they are, even though they're important to me. On the one hand, I get inspired by the big names and the well-known names, just like anybody else. There's just inspiring people in the world. For me personally, it would be people like Steph Curry and Steve Kerr, who are with the Warriors here. And it's not that they're winners. They are winners and they're great at what they do, but they also lead with heart and they're phenomenal human beings and they're humble and they have integrity. But on a day-to-day basis, those are not the people who have influenced me personally and inspired kind of from that real impact point of view. Those, I would say, kind of as a broad category, tend to be the people that have worked for me. They have been my best mentors, teachers, role models, and sources of information have been the people on my own team, much more so, than categorically the people I've worked for. And then also my colleagues, the people that I've worked with. And, for those names, you wouldn't recognize them, but it's like Vasu Jakal and Kate Bullis and Hitesh Shah and Uday Kashabdis. And what is common about them is they make the world better or the situation better just with their presence. And it's because they exude positivity. They lift others up. They constantly help other people and support other people and celebrate other people. They just embody everything that is good in the world. And, that's the leader I want to be. Now, the ones that I just mentioned off there happen to be my co-founders, people that helped me found this new company that's all about positivity and so forth. But that's where I personally draw inspiration. And it's no farther than, the people I'm surrounded by all the time. So I feel really fortunate about that.
That's really powerful. And I don't even know them personally, but I feel inspired by them already. So that is wonderful. And I'd love to know, what are some of the initiatives that you're most proud of? I know throughout your career, you've worn many hats, like I said earlier, and you've held many roles, but what are some of these initiatives that you're most proud of?
Well, I could certainly name a whole lot of new products and new categories and company successes and turnarounds. And I'm proud of all of those things. But what I would say I'm most proud of is none of that. It's really when I have been able to have a very positive impact on somebody's life. And that's broad. One of the things I do is I help kids go to college who otherwise wouldn't be able to. And I pay for them to just go to college. Or I help a lot of new grads coming out of college, or while they're in college, getting an internship at a tech company, or breaking into tech. And I evangelize tech a lot, even though it has a lot of problems still, especially for women and minorities. But it's still, in my mind, the greatest industry to work in because you can change the world from tech. So I advocate and help people break in. I love to impact people by promoting them into a new job or helping them get into any kind of new role, whether it's my company or somewhere else that really stretches them. A lot of times I feel like I see people's potential even before or more so than they do. And I'll help stick them in a role that they never thought they could do, and they end up really thriving. Or helping people get their first C-suite job or their first CEO or board job. It doesn't matter how high you reach in your career, there's always a first for you, or you're not growing. And any new first, it doesn't matter how many times you've done it, being first, doing it the first time is really hard. And so, I've seen that even myself, becoming a first-time CEO. That was hard. Somebody had to champion me.
That is so powerful. And you said a really great quote. It doesn't matter how high you go, there is always a first for everybody. And that's very humbling. And I think if more people realize that or acknowledge that, the world would be a very different place, to be honest with you.
My other one, to just interject, I tell myself all the time, and it helps to keep me humble. It's like, as we all climb in our careers, you see that mountain peak and you get to it. And then you're like, yay, I got to this mountain. And then you look and there's a higher mountain. And then you look again. And so it doesn't matter how successful you become, how rich you become, how good at something you become, unless you're Steph Curry or, Tom Brady or something. There's almost always at least one other person, if not hundreds or thousands of other people that are better than you, that are richer than you, that are more powerful than you, that are nicer than you, that are more successful than. And so it's like all you can do is be your best, and then, like I say, help others, because the likelihood of you being the single biggest, bestest, whateverist is a very, very small chance. But it doesn't mean you can't make an important impact in the world.
Exactly. You can be the best you that you can be and make that impact.
This is it.
And I want to touch upon something that you mentioned earlier about forging wholly new markets. And I'm very curious about that. So how has your experience contributed to you creating brand new markets? And what's the difference between opening a new market and evolving an existing one? And how do you do it?
Well, so your question about like what's a new market, what's an existing market, I'm not going to pretend to give you an answer to that that anybody else would agree with, because it's fluid and there aren't really clear lines. There's new markets, there's new categories in existing markets, and then there's like better mousetraps, which aren't a new category. They're just, like you say, evolving an existing market. And the way I think about it is new markets and new categories are often associated with new budgets or with substitutes. There's a budget out there, but there's not a direct competitor. I'm going to use the budget that you're using kind of to solve the problem, but I'm going to come in with a completely different way to solve that problem. But there aren't clear lines. So when I think about a new market, it is either a whole new problem to solve that you never knew you even had until somebody pointed it out. You didn't know you needed that until it was brought to your attention. So, or it can be a completely different way, a game-changing way to solve an existing problem. And examples of what I would say, and again, this can certainly be debated. What's a category? What's a market? I would say if you think about in the market of transportation, there's the car and the horse. I would call the car the automobile market. Now, there was already a market for horses and buggies and so forth, and it's in the overall transportation area category, but the car was really a new market when it emerged, even though it was a substitute for the horse. It was just so, now you could say, well, was it really a new category in transportation or was it a new market? Because it's so big, because there's so many ways to slice and dice, I would kind of call that a new market. The plane or the train could be another version of that. Modern versions would be things like internet, home internet services, consumer internet services, and then the internet search engine, and then social media and home robots and home voice assistants. Those categories of product didn't really exist before. Before there was a home internet, we didn't, we had you could call people with a phone, but you couldn't do the same things. In business, it's things like frame relay and internet services and VPNs when they first emerged, CRM, like these categories that, unless you're in business, are probably kind of meaningless. But a category, the way I think about it is it already kind of exists, but I'm coming along with something 10x better. So it's the same product you have. My car versus a flying car could be a new category because it's markedly different from what you have now. So, you could say there were phones before smartphones, but to me, the smartphone is a whole new category. There were cassette players before MP3, but MP3 players, 1,000 songs in your pocket, whole new category. The smartwatch, the watch can, do everything but brush your teeth, or endpoint security or precision timing or ADM optics, ABM, again, those are business terms for people that live in the business world, but those are kind of new categories. Yeah, they broadly existed, but the thing that you're bringing out has a 10x advantage on at least one attribute. Evolving is more like better mousetraps. It's a different take on an existing market and category. A TV with an internet connection. It's still a TV. It still does all the same things it did before, but now it's directly connected to the internet. I don't need to have separate devices and stuff. That's evolution. It's a feature. And when you start stacking up features, that's how you evolve an existing market. It's not a 10x differentiation. It's not a complete substitute. It's not a whole new problem. It's just better at what you need done.
I didn't know that distinction previously. So thank you so much for laying it out so clearly as well.
Well, again, it's one point of view, and you could get 10 experts in the room, and we probably would all say it slightly differently. So it's one of those things, kind of like porn, you know it when you see it, but there's not necessarily a hard definition.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of wholly new markets, what about the metaverse? So if the metaverse is going to be our future, what do we need to do to make it a kinder place in our current working environment?
Oh boy. Well, that is something that almost keeps me awake at night and definitely is one of the impetuses for the new business that I've started. I am, to just take a step back, I personally am so disappointed to the point of almost being distraught over Web 2.0 business models. I spent my entire career traipsing around the world, rolling out data and internet services so we could all be connected. And in the 90s, as us maniacs were running around doing that, we had these dreams of a better world and how it was going to bring us all together and people could share points of view with each other. And we never in a million years imagined the echo chambers and the vitriol and the hatred and the animosity. And it's gut-wrenching to see technology that should be used for good and that I personally always thought would be used for good and see it used for bad, even in many cases now by what I thought were good companies. I'm devastated by that. And it has real impact on people's lives, especially young people's lives, but everybody. It's like people get online and the best case scenario is they waste a lot of time and they probably feel worse about themselves when they're done. And then you get people who get online and they make other people feel worse. And there's division and there's anger and the country and the world get further and further apart. And it's all fake. It's all being driven by algorithms that help people make money because there's more money. There's a well-worn path to make money on negativity in Hollywood, in gaming, in social media, in traditional media. Where is the path to make money on positivity? Mm-hmm. It's very worrisome. Now comes along the metaverse, And the technology in the metaverse can be even more immersive and manipulative than the technology in Web 2.0. So if we think it's bad now, it could be 1,000 times worse. I was reading this one article last week, and it talked about how in the metaverse, if you're a political candidate, whoever I am, the technology behind the experience could take my facial features and subtly blend them with the facial features of a candidate. And there is science behind, if you see yourself kind of reflected in somebody else, it's the most extreme form of mirroring, which is a known kind of scientific, psychological way to get people to go along with you or to like you. It's the most extreme form of mirroring because literally you're kind of seeing yourself in that candidate reflected back at you. It's proven that you are more likely to like that candidate. Well, that's frightening. So, and that's just a tiny way of how we could be manipulated and not even know it. And you think, oh, that couldn't happen to me. People are manipulated, all of us, all the time. Our points of view are manipulated and we don't realize that's happening. And it could be so much worse in the metaverse. So I feel like, one, it has to be stopped, the existing companies. That's not my realm. But we need more companies started and more people, good people, leaders focused on how to make business a force for good in the world, to understand our responsibility, especially in tech, for creating products and experiences that impact people's lives in a positive, not a negative way, because that ripples out into how they show up with their family, how they show up at work, and how they show up in the world, and therefore how the world is. My favorite quote from Contact is, funny, I always thought the world is what we make it. And the world is what we make it, but we're making it depressed and angry and divided, and we shouldn't be. So, I get very spun up over it. I really feel like we have a big responsibility and we all have to pay attention to this. I'm putting my money and my time on the line. The company I founded is a positivity platform. It's designed to help reverse these doom loops and turn them into joy loops, help people build self-confidence and self-awareness and spread positivity and make themselves and others happier and more unified, lift people up. I hope my company is successful, no guarantees, but it can't just be one. Like we need lots of people that are starting companies for good and not for evil.
I couldn't agree with you more, because when we take a look at the products and services that are being shipped on a day-to-day basis, the way we design these products has such a huge impact on our everyday decision-making. And there are even books that are written out there that how to make products more addictive. Is that ethical? I don't know. Probably not. So
done all the time. And in any online game or whatever, the science of addiction is well understood. But yes, I get what you're saying.
That's a little scary when you think about it. But if you can write books on how to make products more addictive, why can't we just, on the flip side, think about how to write more books on how to create more products geared toward positivity? Why aren't we paying more attention to that? I don't know. But tell me more about the positivity platform that you're building, and how's your passion for personal and professional development shape the way that you're approaching this new company?
So the new company, there's not a whole lot I can tell you, but it's called XAPA or XAPA World, which is XAPA. And that's because XAPA means joy in Greek. And we're talking like not joy, happy, joy, like superficial. We're talking like deep understanding of yourself, confidence in yourself, deep commitment, compassion, joy that you feel and you can spread to others. And where we started was with the realization that none of us is able to control the world. It's frustrating to me that this company or that company is exploitative and this technology gets used and people are angry, but I can't control any of that. The thing that I can control, and every single one of us can control, is we can control ourselves and our own responses to the world. And in my case, What I'm doing is I'm starting a positivity platform to try to help people. But what the platform does is it helps every person get to this realization. I can't control my neighbor, my boss, my company, my friend, my son, daughter, my parents. I can control me and how I respond to the situation. But that's easier said than done, because what it takes is a set of soft skills and EQ and capabilities that some people have innately. Some people are just born resilient and positive and with a high EQ, but a lot of people aren't. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, can that be taught? And there's a lot of evidence that it can be taught. You can learn to become the very best version of yourself, even if you're not there yet. None of us are born the very best version of ourselves. We grow into that. We create ourselves over time. Life isn't about finding yourself. It's really about creating yourself every single day with each experience. And you can create a future you that is angry and resentful and, none of the things that any of us would want to be in our future selves. Or you can create a future self that is positive and resilient and able to help others and do good in the world. And those are skills. Every single one of those, even happiness, is a skill that you can learn and practice. Positivity, joy, resilience, but also things like self-confidence, self-awareness, influence, leadership, social skills, communication skills, listening skills, all of these things. And so what we're doing is we're creating something that kind of lives at the intersection of an app and a game. So it's very fun to do. Yes, you can go online and you can spend 15 mindless minutes looking at, cat videos or something, or you could have fun for 15 minutes, but at the end of that, you could feel better about yourself and have some new skills, but it's been fun doing it. So that's what we're trying to do. Our initial target market is really people like you, Nicole. It is Gen Y and Gen Z who we think, one, have been impacted in an outsized manner by the negativity online and in social media, and also by COVID. But just as importantly, they're a generation, particularly the Zs coming into the workforce, but also the Ys. They're a generation that expects very different things out of work. They don't want to live to work. They want to work to live. They want a level of work-life balance that no other generation has demanded before. And they are demanding it. And they pay attention to their mental health and their bodies and their physical health. And they want growth opportunities and experiences. They're all about experiences. And they want to know the impact that they have in a company, and they want to be heard and valued and rewarded and acknowledged for the value they bring. And they want their values to be aligned and know that the company they're working for and the work they're doing is doing some good in the world. They want to make the world better when they show up to work every day. And so you might think, wow, well, that's pretty demanding, but that's exactly what we need. Not just every person, but every business being directed by. So they embody the future. And what we want to do is we want to develop the conscious business leaders of the future, and leader not just in an organizational term for what title or what level you have. Our belief is anybody can be a leader. Leadership is about if you can influence, if you can show up and have a positive or negative influence of those around you, you're leading. And how do we create conscious leaders who are making the world a better place with their presence? And that's what the platform is designed to do. Now there's not even a website. If you tried to look up XAPA.com, eventually it'll come to me, but right now it's not even a website. We won't launch until probably first quarter of next year. And then we'll take, probably a quarter to beta, and then ultimately we'll release it to everybody.
That's exciting. And I absolutely love the value proposition of XAPA. You are absolutely right. When we think about social media today, when you're doom scrolling and you leave that session feeling so depleted, how often do we actually scroll through social media feeling better about ourselves? Hardly ever.
Right.
Never,
Right.
especially for my generation.
Right.
My
Well,
generation.
and I'll intercept very quickly. One of the things that I'm super proud of in XAPA World, we have no idea if this is going to work, but we're going to test it, and we call it the inside out strategy. You have an avatar as you don't have to know anything about gaming. You just have to know how to touch your phone, and you can walk around the world and make things happen. But your avatar can't look anything like you on the outside. You're beautiful, you're lucky, you're beautiful, but your avatar can't have these gorgeous brown eyes and this beautiful brown hair and brown skin. Can't look like you, can't be female, can't be 30 something, can't be thin. You're the epitome of what everybody wants to look like, but not everybody looks like that. And quite frankly, I can't judge whether you're a good person or a horrible person just because you're beautiful or not beautiful on the outside, because you conform to some norm. So when you do your avatar in XAPA World, you can customize it in a bunch of different ways, but the only skin colors are like purple and orange and blue. But you can't be female or male or non-binary. You can't be fat or thin. All of that's off the table in terms of customization. And what we want to do is teach people that the only way to get to know me is through my heart, like knowing who I am on the inside. And so there's a way for us to expose that. You can share that with people, but it's your choice. But you can't really know who I am until you're able to look inside my heart space.
I absolutely love that. I had never thought about that. And if a lot of other organizations design their products that way, again, the world will be a very different place. And if we were designing things based on the way we feel inside, I think it's a brilliant idea to be able to reflect who we are on the inside to the outside world, because we're very judgmental people. We put people in a box because that's how our brains are wired. And so if we could change that and shift that mindset, which is what XAPA is trying to do, I think that a lot of impact could be made. So I'm really excited about that.
That's our hope. It is a big risk. It might not work. People might not go for it. But if they do, it will change the way, hopefully, the way we think about ourselves and how other social media works. So we'll see, but I'm excited and we'll give it a try.
Oh, exactly. Really excited about the launch. And so what would you say to listeners who are interested in starting their own social enterprise like you?
Oh boy. Well, first of all, it's freaking hard. And so, dial up your resilience and your persistence. Or if you don't have those, get on XAPA and build up your power in that area. Have co-founders. Honestly, as excited as I am about XAPA, as much as I believe in it, if I had just tried to start it on my own, I would have quit a million times over. It's just, I'm a very positive person, and I lay down at night in my bed and it's like all those little ants, those automatic negative thoughts about what am I doing? And how are we going to make the product work? How are we going to get customers? Who's going to want this? You just can't help it. And it's stupid. You're psyching yourself out. There's no data on it. Of course, you should be able to try it. But it's really, really hard. And if you're trying to do it alone, it would be so lonely. So have people that believe. It takes money. I mean, listen, I'm super lucky. I was able to do this company in part because my founders and I were able to self-fund it to begin with. Because I'm a proven CEO with tons of relationships in the VC community. I live in Silicon Valley, and I made people a lot of money. And even then, I had a hard time raising money. Even then. And so I'm a woman. Supposedly they want to invest in women. Supposedly they want to invest in social impact projects. Nah. Everybody says the same thing. Well, it's really intriguing idea. You're a little early for us. We want to see some traction. Well, by the time I get traction, what do I need you for?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm lucky. One, I have a lot of friends who also have done very well, and they're willing to take a bet on me and on this idea. And they believe in trying to make the world better and investing to make that happen. There's a handful of VCs who also are in that camp with me. But if I had just had to go around and schlep this idea to, stranger VCs until somebody put money behind it, I'd still be walking the streets. There would be no XAPA. So, I'm fortunate. I was able to put my money where my own mouth is and fund it. And that got us going. And now we're in the seed round. And so we're doing really well. We still have a little bit more to raise, but once you get that going and you have a product to show and so forth, it becomes a little bit easier. But then the other thing is, so that's all the hard stuff. If you decide to still go forward, God bless you, make the world better, not worse. And think about it now, because when these social media companies got started, they didn't start to make the world worse. They didn't say, oh, let's build something that'll make everybody angry and divided. But they also didn't think clearly and in a future projection about how their business model could be contorted and how those algorithms, when they were saying the upvote and the downvote, and they were giving more points to the anger versus the like. And, when your whole business is based on advertising, which you need, sensational, they make money when things are sensationalized. And the easiest way to sensationalize is to catastrophize or to make people angry. Now, did they start out wanting to do that? No, but now their whole business model is based on that. And they're sort of between a rock and a hard place, and they aren't willing to unwind it. They could, but they're not willing to. So think about whatever it is, think about what your responsibility is to build a business that's a force for good in the world. Because we all spend more time at business than anywhere else. And business is what makes the world go round. It is what creates the economy. So there is no way to solve all the problems in the world unless business solves the problems. There is just no way. Consumers alone cannot do it. They have to have the help and even the leadership from business, and especially in tech, because we touch and influence literally everybody on the planet. So as you go in, recognize the big responsibility that you have, take that seriously, learn from the mistakes of others, and then paint a picture that will inspire you and others about how you can not only make money, but you can make money by doing good and being a force for good in the world.
I couldn't have said that better myself. I would have been telling myself that, Nicole, 3 years ago. That would have certainly helped, especially when we launched Forbes Ignite. We wanted to be a force for good in the world. And so we have a lot into there.
You're doing it. Exactly. You are living this every day. And if everybody lived it, especially every business leader, the world would be a different place in 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. Now, Christine, I ask this question to every single one of my podcast guests. And so I'd love to know, how do you define success?
Oh, that's super easy for me. It is by the way I impact other people. In the past, that has been about how I impact my family or my friends or my coworkers or my team or the companies I work for. And now for me, I'm trying to take it up a notch. I literally want XAPA to impact the whole world and every person in it, directly or indirectly. But that is it. Success right now for me is about how I contribute to making the world and every person in it happier and more unified, and how I can help each person see and become the best version of themselves. When I was 32, I think, I wrote a personal purpose statement. And the only reason I wrote it is because I was a strategy consultant at the time, running a strategy consulting business, and we helped companies do this. And we had a great process for helping companies write their purpose statements and blah, blah, blah. And I had a client say, "What's your purpose statement?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" And like you personally. And I'm like, "Oh, blah, blah, blah. I don't know." Like I was so, like I went red. I was so embarrassed. I never even thought about it. And so I used my own process and I came up with a personal purpose statement. And mine at the time, I was 32. I've never changed a word of this. I said, "I'm a human catalyst, and I help people envision and achieve more than they ever thought possible." It can be a boss, it can be a CEO, it can be a colleague, it can be a kid down the street, whatever, but I help people envision and achieve more than they ever thought possible. So now I just want to do that with XAPA and help each person be that best version of themselves.
That is amazing. And that is absolutely beautiful. I love that definition of success and how you came up with your personal purpose statement. I need to do that for myself as well. So
everybody should do that. It's hard, but when you land on it, it sticks.
Exactly. And I hope that'll stick with me for the next couple of decades. It'll likely pivot, it'll likely change or
Right.
evolve.
How you do it changes.
Mhm.
But, if you can really understand your purpose, and it gets down to what you're great at. Where do you find satisfaction and you're great at? And that's where your personal inspiration, your energy comes from. And then everything you do, you just find a way to also do that in what you're doing. And then you never work a day in your life, and, life is wonderful.
Exactly. 100% agree with you. Well, Christina, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you. I learned a lot from this conversation, and I cannot wait for our second podcast conversation coming up in a couple months. And I cannot wait to hear about your progress and more to come.
Well, thank you for spending your personal time also trying to make the world better, Nicole. We need more of that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christine.
Bye, everybody.
That's it for this week's episode of Inner Wealth. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and that you'll join us next week as we continue to explore all the ways success is being redefined in our ever-changing world. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite podcast app, and follow us on Instagram at Forbes Ignite for more thought-provoking content and opportunities to engage with us. I'm your host, Nicole Cacal. Thanks for joining us.